It's your Thursday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to have everybody back for another day. Big week, big show. Jerry Zgoda covers Minnesota United soccer for the Star Tribune. Will join me in a little while. Training camp for that team opened earlier this week. A lot of interesting storylines with the Loons. Manuel Reynoso is interesting to me. Their pursuit of the South Korean striker is interesting to me. Jerry and I will get into that a little bit as well. It's just an overall outlook for a team that has been kind of on the fringes of contention. Has made the playoffs now 4 consecutive seasons, but maybe looking to take another step this year in their own evolution, and a lot of things dependent on that. So Jerry and I will address that, break that down, and get into that in a little while here. Also have some Timberwolves thoughts, losing to the Pistons for the second time in less than 2 weeks, bookending a 4-game winning streak with losses to one of the worst teams in the NBA is very Timberwolves-esque this year. Perhaps the most unserious team that I have watched in a long time. Can't get their act together in terms of any kind of maturity or consistent effort. And maybe more concerning than that, Anthony Edwards, a flare-up of that hip injury. He left the game, was ruled out, then came back in, very Brett Favre-esque from 2010, and then, they still couldn't get much going in that second half. They started the game on a 10-0 run, lost by 20. That tells you all you need to know. Lost by, I guess it was 17 at the end, but, close enough. That's what it was when it was really meaningful. So we'll get into that team a little bit more at the end of the show. First, though, what did I miss? Got to tie a bow on all of the Carlos Correa coverage because news conference introducing him officially was Wednesday. We heard from Carlos Correa kind of talking through the whole process that brought him to the Twins through this wild journey of free agency. The story very familiar by now, even if it is still so bizarre. Agreed about a month ago to that 13-year $350 million deal with the Giants. Looked like the Twins had been outbid at that point, disappointed at that point. That deal falls through. Twins still don't get him when he goes to the Mets on a 12-year, $315 million deal. That also falls through. Of course, the medical concern about his surgically repaired ankle from 8 years ago, the sticking point with doctors in San Francisco and the Mets. The Twins swoop in, give him half the term, basically 6 years, but $200 million. Option years, vesting options based on plate appearances could push that to $270 over 10 years. And Correa and his agent, Scott Boras, end up taking that deal back here after signing that 1-year, $35.1 million contract last offseason. I mean, it was a 3-year deal, but really everybody knew it was going to be a 1-year deal, and he was going to opt back into free agency. So here we are, the Twins assuming a certain amount of risk, but also getting a player who, when he is healthy, is one of the best shortstops in baseball and one of the best all-around players in baseball. Players like that don't just fall into the Twins' laps very often, don't stay here in free agency very often. So such a mixed bag of emotions, I would think, right now for Carlos Correa, for the Twins, for their fans. I guess the bottom line is this. The Twins are a better team than they started out at the beginning of the week. And when you can make yourself better, even if it costs a lot of money, 6 years, $200 million is an average value of a little over $33 million. That is a big financial outlay for the Twins. They are better right now than they were when the week started. So that piece of it is a big deal that we have to think of in the big picture. Now, all the little things making up for it can be kind of parsed a lot of different ways. Now, one of those things is the optics of a player like Correa who, agreed to terms with 2 other teams, which, makes it essentially seem like the Twins were at least his third choice. And I think that's a valid concern, even if it's just a PR concern. Correa did address that question during his news conference on Wednesday. Here's Correa on that.
Well, Minnesota was always in that small group of teams that I told Scott at the beginning of a free agency. The whole free agency process is a very complicated process, as we know, and a lot of things happen along the way. But at the end of the day, all that matters is that I'm here. I'm going to represent this city. I'm going to represent this organization. I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to play hard every single day. I'm going to be out there in the community, helping as much as I can. And all that matters is what I do from this moment forward.
And I think that piece of it will be fairly quickly forgotten if he succeeds, if all is well here. I think his interest in Minnesota is genuine. I think he did build good connections here a year ago, talking about, connections still with Byron Buxton, connections with Jose Miranda, other players on the team. I think those are genuine. And so I think that there is that bond. There exists that bond already. So I don't worry too much about that piece of it. I do still, of course, worry about the injury piece. Correa did address that again in his news conference Wednesday, just kind of talking about controlling what he can control, preparing the way he does. Here was Correa on taking care of his body.
I focus on the things that I can control, and some of these things I had no control over them. So I was not stressing over it too much, just for the simple fact that I could not control their decisions and what some other doctors said. What I can control is prepare my body every single day to compete every single day, to show up every single day, to help my team win. Those are the things that I can control, and I stress about that. And as you know, I take really good care of my body. I'm very disciplined when it comes to my preparation in season and the off season. So those are the things that I stress about.
Now, it is fair to point out that Correa has not missed any time, at least not officially, during his career for this ankle injury, and that has not really been a concern so far in his career. It is also fair, though, to point out that kind of in the middle of his career so far, he's had seasons where he's missed a lot of time. 2017, he only played in 109 games. 2018, 110 games. 2019, 75 games. Last two seasons, actually last three, have been much better. The COVID year, he played 58 games. 2021, he played 148. Last year with the Twins, played 136. If they can get 130, 135 games out of him every year of this contract, that will be worthwhile to them. That will be good because he is, a player, like we said, when healthy, he is very productive. The question, though, still is when healthy. And now the thing I don't like is that the two most dynamic players the Twins have right now, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton, 1-2 in that draft so many years ago, they are both take your breath away players. They are both also hold your breath for health reasons players. It's going to be a roller coaster. This is part of the big risk-reward with the Twins right now. It's been a risk-reward offseason. The Joey Gallo signing is a risk-reward move. Carlos Correa is certainly a risk-reward move when you think about his injury potential and how much money they gave him. That piece of it is going to be difficult for Twins fans to reckon with. They're going to have to, go into every year, go into every game perhaps, worrying that their two best players could get hurt at any moment and how much of an impact that could have on the Twins. Not just, in Buxton's cases, these have tended to be lingering, soft tissue injuries that take longer to heal than others. With Correa, it's kind of a one false move and things could get really bad for a very long time kind of thing. Again, they haven't yet. So again, going back to Correa's quote about controlling what you can control, you can worry about those things. You can know that they're concerns for the future. But if you dwell on them too much, I guess that isn't productive. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is the Twins are taking on a lot of risk. There is a lot of upside with Correa, of course. I think Correa spoke to that pretty well in in his news conference Wednesday. Scott Boras spoke to it. Derek Falvey spoke to it. I don't think anybody's going into this naive. I like the terms a lot better than any of the other terms before. 6 years means, he's playing the first year of his career in his age 28 season, just turned 28. He will turn 34 right at the end of his 6th season. So you're getting some of the best years of his career, and you're hoping that ankle holds up for at least that long. And, if it's proven to have held up that long until now, that's a good sign. Doesn't guarantee anything in the future, but at least you know that there has been some stability in that ankle for the last 8 years. So risk reward is kind of the key element of all this. Twins going big on this when other teams wouldn't, and we'll see how that ultimately works out for them.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
All right, I'm happy to be joined today by Jerry Zgoda, covers Minnesota United Soccer for the Star Tribune. Loons just started training this week for the 2023 season. They kick off in late February, first home match in March. But some interesting storylines already, Jerry, as they get ready for the season. Their best player for the last few years has been Emmanuel Reynoso. Some intrigue there with some of the stuff he's dealing with. There's been reports that they're interested in this South Korean striker, and then just kind of trying to get over the hump, into a spot where they're not just on the fringes of these playoff races at the end of the year, but making a bigger push. From where you sit, and you've been covering camp already so far this week, what stands out to you as things that we should be paying attention to here we are in early to mid January?
Well, it's hard to really tell because there are some people who are not here yet. Like you mentioned, Reynoso is still to come in. Makai Dabasi, who had kind of a season-ending injury the last several weeks of the season last year, is in yesterday, but he hasn't participated. Robin Ludd is on the MLS every year, has it's kind of a media parade out in California to drum up stuff for the season. And so he's been there all week representing the Loons, and he'll be back on Friday. So, I mean, right now it's just kind of this unusual mix of they keep getting younger. They keep getting, looking at players under 25, particularly under this under 22 initiative that they're going to add probably a couple defenders here in the next couple of days. And then they go out and get 3 MLS veterans, guys 29, 30, somewhere in there, who are good locker room guys, and more importantly, salary cap friendly, because they're really trying to balance that now between the money they're paying out to their top players and then trying, to fit in their cap guys that they can get stuff out of for, $100,000, $150,000, guys who've been in the league but are kind of looking to finish up their careers. So we'll see all that mixes together here in the next week, and then they go to Orlando to train, play some games against maybe a little MLS competition, but some college teams. And then they come back here for a week, and then they go play this new tournament out in Palm Springs. So it's going to be a busy time coming up here till the end of February.
Yeah, sounds like it. Now, Reynoso, you mentioned he's not here yet. Sounds like things are progressing there. Where do we stand with everything?
Yeah, I actually think he's in town. He may have. We only saw the morning practice. He may be participating this afternoon. As of yesterday, Adrian Heath said they were still that him and Fragapani, his Argentinian teammate, were on their way or were here, but had to go through all their medicals and should be ready to go. I expect probably to see him on field tomorrow morning at the very least.
Well, that's a big deal. I mean, obviously, because they, Reynoso been their best player, but also had, dealing with a legal situation that, could be a little bit dicey for him. We don't know a whole lot about that, I imagine, at this point. But, is that what's the team's level of concern with that, or is that just kind of in the background and they're kind of waiting and seeing on that?
Well, Heath kind of brushed it off as like business as usual. We're going forward. He goes, that was last year, meaning this arrest that he had and was accused of beating a 16-year-old boy and making threats with a gun. That was 13 months ago, and then it just, he was jailed for a week back then, and then ended up posting bail and then didn't miss any time here. That was 13 months ago, and now it pops up again that case may be going to a trial. So I don't know how the wheels of quote unquote justice work in Argentina, but that's something to keep an eye on. But Heath, maybe mainly just dismissed it and said, we're going forward, and he's here and he's cleared to play, and that's that.
Okay.
We'll see if that's that.
Yeah. Well, their pursuit of a South Korean striker sounds like upwards of many millions of dollars, designated player, and Heath definitely talked about that the other day. Where do you gauge their level of interest in not just level of interest but level of possibility in making a move like that?
Well, he's one of the guys. I mean, you look at the roster; they've got a spot. It seems like they've been perpetually searching for a striker.
Yes.
Keep year by year by year, and now they've got room. They can create room to get another one, to get a designated player, spend a lot of money. They've talked about. I'm going to butcher the guy's name, but Cho Chogu Sung,
Choke-sung, yeah.
who scored 2 goals in the Olympics for or a World Cup for South Korea.
Right.
But whether it's not him, it'll be somebody like him, a big money player, scorer. You read the stuff, just Googling the stuff and looking on Twitter around the world. There are a couple Scottish teams after him. There's a team in Germany supposedly after him. It sounds like the Loons have made offered a good amount of money. Whether that's enough to get a guy to come here to play in MLS when he could possibly play in Europe, well, I don't know. That should play out over the next couple of days. But if not him, that's the one move they have yet really to make. They've got a space. They could still wait until the summer transfer window to do something with that spot. But this is the time of year, middle end of January, where they really start making deals, and we'll see if whether it's the South Korean striker or another player. There's another South Korean striker, older. The guy they've been talking to recently was 24. There's been older. I saw his name linked to the Loons yesterday. A 30-year-old guy who they had shown some interest in a couple of years ago. So a lot of this stuff comes and circles back. You hear a guy's name, and then a year and a half later they end up getting him. So a lot of these things take a while. We'll see, but I suspect whether it's now before the season starts or whether it's in the summer transfer window that they'll go out and get a DP and buy one of their 2 DPs down to make room for a new guy.
Roster building in MLS is just kind of fascinating. I mean, soccer in general, but particularly MLS. I mean, you've covered the NBA for a long time. You covered the NHL a long time ago. You covered all manners of professional sports. I mean, this is a unique animal in how you have these different opportunities to improve yourself, how the draft works. Everything about this is just kind of different than a lot of other major North American pro sports leagues work, right?
I thought the NBA salary cap was befuddling.
Right.
You got to this, you've got all these different leagues. There's all over the world and with different times of seasons. So, like when the Wolves are just starting their season up, some teams elsewhere are just starting to wind theirs down. So that complicates things. And transfer windows and all that stuff. It's I don't know how those guys keep all that stuff straight because I've covered this now a few years and it still makes my head spin.
Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, and you got to be teams have to be on top of it, obviously, and know what they need and know when they're going to be able to get it when certain players are available. Because this is a team that finished the year last year, made the postseason again, but didn't really. I don't know if you characterized last year as a success or a holding on to kind of the fringes, but how do you think they view themselves going into this year? Do they feel like they're on the upswing, treading water, and how should we look at them right now, kind of coming off of modest success, sustained modest success, but haven't really reached that next level for a while?
I think mostly they want to see everybody get healthy and put this team together and see what it looks like, because you saw it in pieces last year. They start out kind of rough and then they go through this period midseason where they're great, and then they kind of stumble down the stretch and they hold on at the very end when they probably had no business making the playoffs, but they did enough to make the playoffs, and then they lose in the first round. So I think they want to see another year of that front together with Fragapane and Reynoso just behind Robin Ludd, and whether it's Luis Amaria or to be signed striker, put those guys together. And they're getting Hassani Dotson back, who they haven't seen since last April when he tore his ACL. So there's a versatile player that you can almost pencil in somewhere in the lineup. Who knows where, because you can play so many positions, but probably somewhere in the central midfield where they're going to have all kinds of options and competition for jobs. And you've got Dane Sinclair coming back from a World Cup experience. And it's his job now because Tyler Miller left as a free agent. They didn't extend his option. So, I think they just want to get some stability, get this team together, get it healthy, and see what they have.
I was surprised when I read that Hassani Dotson seems to be on track. I mean, maybe that's just the nature of ACLs these days. They're not as long of a recovery as they used to be. And even, 10 years ago, it was kind of a miracle when Adrian Peterson came back on such a tight timeline in the NFL. Do they really expect he'll be full go by the opener this year?
It's going to be close to 11 months. Yesterday, Adrian Heath set the time of March 1st as the time they're hopeful that he can get on the field and really start doing something and contribute. So that's almost 10 and a half months. So it's still a long time. It's still, even though technology has changed, it's still a major injury to come back from. So we'll see what March 1st brings, and if that means just getting it. He's been doing stuff now, but just kind of on the periphery. He hasn't done any kind of contact stuff, at least that I've seen. So, and I talked to him today, and he seems to be progressing and optimistic about this March 1st date. So, even if he's not plugged in the starting lineup, then you're thinking March, early April that he'll start to be able to contribute.
So the vast majority of the season, at least, which would be good news for them. A couple more things for you, Jerry Zgoda. I think we've seen the core of this team. You kind of know some of the players now. They've been together for a little while, at least. Anybody that is maybe set to emerge, or who if they've kind of been working along slowly, or have some high hopes for in terms of maybe making a leap or a contribution this year?
Well, I think it's kind of you look at the young guys and see what kind of thing, they brought them in, a bunch of guys, 23, 24, 25 in the last couple of years. Guys like, maybe Emery is a little older than that, but you've got Arriaga and Joseph Rosales from Honduras, who have both, made their mark so far. And, are they ready to take another leap? You got Bongi. I'm not going to try to pronounce his whole name, but you got, that he started showing signs. What can he do getting here another whole full year together? Mender Garcia, another guy they invested in we've just seen glimpses of these guys. Let's see what we see for a whole year. One of the names I'm hearing from early workouts is a draft picked, was it last year or the year before, Tani, I will butcher his name too, Alawasi, who you're hearing his name. He did the best on these training fitness tests when they come in, a thing called a beep test, and he was the number one fit guy for that, and has impressed, I guess, during workouts. So they've got a bunch of these young guys that we've seen bits and pieces of the last year and a half, 2 years, and now it'll be interesting to see what, with a full training camp and if everybody can stay healthy, what those guys can do and who steps to the front for it.
You mentioned Dane St. Clair. Maybe that's a good place to end, because they really, a lot of what they did, a lot of their success, especially the first half of the year last year, was predicated on him being pretty good. And like you said, coming off of a national team appearance, going to the World Cup with Canada. Is his level of play, how sustainable is that, and how much are they dependent on what he gave them last year, especially, like I said, in the first half of the year?
Well, I think he's pretty. I guess the question is he that good? I think he is pretty good. He had some stumbles, like right before he had a bad game, right before the All-Star game here, and when he was honored with his performance in August. But he's big, and he's what is this now? Fifth year on a second contract, and it's funny because a year ago he was the backup, and then all of a sudden Tyler Miller gets sick before a game, and Dane steps in and plays the rest of the season, and Tyler's gone, and now he's the guy. He's the number one. They signed Clint Irwin, a veteran guy who's been around Colorado, Toronto, but he's clearly, he says you always compete for the starting job, but he's clearly the number two, the guy they've got in case anything should happen. But it's Dane's job, and we'll see. We'll see what the World Cup experience, if that matures him a little just from being around in that atmosphere.
Should be interesting. Jerry will have you covered. Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. It's a long wind-up to the season. Like we said, it's about 6 weeks until they kick it off for real, but a lot to look forward to with Minnesota United this season. Jerry Zgoda, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you soon.
10 months of soccer coming up.
Yeah, baby. Let's do it.
All right.
Good stuff from Jerry. I like the idea of Major League Soccer trying to establish some sort of training camp, kind of like baseball's training camp, trying to establish something where fans go down, watch these guys in the preseason, get a little sun, soak it up, because so many of these MLS cities are in these cold weather cities, and so much of the training is happening kind of at the same time as baseball, a little bit earlier even, of course, January, February, but a time when people might like to get away. If you're a big enough soccer fan, you might want to go travel and watch these guys play some preseason, some exhibition, get a little time outside, get a little time in the fresh, warm air. Sounds pretty good to me, so maybe that's a good thing that MLS could have going in future years, and we will see how this year plays out for the Loons. Let's finish with an extended cooler. Timberwolves, like I said at the jump, lost to the Pistons last night. Again, seemed like there was progress being made. They had that closed-door, players-only post-game meeting after they lost to the Pistons last time. That was the culmination of a 6-game losing streak. After that, it seemed like they'd cleared the air, won some games, looked pretty good doing it, had some positive momentum going into the second half of the season, which was the start of the second half of the season, officially in terms of games played. They'd played 41 before Wednesday night, had some momentum going into Detroit, felt like they were starting to figure some things out, started that game on a 10-0 run, and then everything fell apart again. This team just can't seem to muster any sort of consistent effort on defense, can't seem to muster any sort of consistent energy. I don't know who the ultimate barometer of that is. I don't think it's fair to pin it on one person. I think D'Angelo Russell is some of that energy. I think Rudy Gobert at times is some of that energy. Karl-Anthony Towns, you can't blame him right now. He is out, and they're 10-11 with Towns, 10-11 without Towns. So that tells you kind of where they're at right now. The bigger concern in all of this is that Anthony Edwards does not seem fully healthy. Not even doesn't seem, is flat out not healthy. Left the game as part of that hip issue he's going through. Was ruled out, then came back in. That does not happen very often. Chris Hines, Star Tribune writer, was at the game. Asked Edwards afterwards, how is he? Is he doing okay? What's going on with all that? And Edwards, Edwards said to him, "Man, I'm good. Tell them what they want to hear. I'm good." I don't know if I like that a whole lot. He finished with 20 points. Chris Finch left him in late in the game. Edwards said, this is the second time in 3 games he's had to come out of the game because of his hip injury. Chris asked him, could he use a game off to rest? Edwards says, I played the very game right after it. Edwards said in relation to his hip injury, I guess I just got to play every game from here on out, no matter how it feels. I'll figure it out. Kind of feels like he has to be out there if they're going to have a chance to win, which is not a bad instinct right now. They really did fall apart when he was not on the court Wednesday night. I mean, you take Towns away, there's going to be some deficits. You take Gobert away, there's going to be some deficits. You take some other guys off the court. Kyle Anderson didn't play. They felt that on Wednesday night. But you take Anthony Edwards out of this mix, and they are in a world of hurt. That said, Edwards also in a world of hurt, it sounds like, with his hip problem. So how they navigate that, how they get him back to somewhere closer to 100% than what he is right now will be a big thing to watch as the season goes along, because they can't have Edwards at 70, 80%, can't have him not feeling like he's able to do the things he's going to do, can't have him exiting games all the time now because of the hip problem. So how that impacts the rest of the season is just one more thing to watch for this team. And again, effort and consistency are so much more of the bigger picture problems with this team, and that's the biggest disappointment of this team right now. Not any kind of injury, not any kind of anything else. How does this team not have a consistent effort and energy after 42 games? All I can conclude is that this is just not a very serious team, and they won't be a serious team until they figure that out. That will do it for today's show. Should have Ben Gessling coming up on Friday's show with me to talk Vikings, getting you ready for the playoff game. Check us out on YouTube, by the way. We've been doing some YouTube videos off of some Vikings coverage we've been doing. Star Tribune YouTube page. You can look for those links off of the StarTribune.com and other places, but and also from social media. Just giving that a whirl, seeing how that looks. And just another way to get some podcast information and get some other stuff for you. So check that out off of the Star Tribune YouTube page. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Michael Rand. Like I said, back at it again on Friday.